Newly leaked audio shows then Vice President Joe Biden demanding political action in Ukraine in exchange for $1 billion in aid. Do you think the media will cover it? As the Democrats push mail-in voting amid coronavirus, new examples show why that is not a good idea. Plus, Kamala Harris is back, pushing a resolution which attacks people for saying Chinese virus. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Friday. We've got a lot to cover, and we're going to start with Joe Biden, Ukraine, Burisma Holdings, and Quid pro quo, because that's what's going on here. If you look back when the Democrats were pushing impeachment against President Trump, what were they talking about? They were talking about bribery. They were talking about quid pro quo. That's what they were pushing. Yet, as they brought all these witnesses forward, not one of them, not one witness said, yes, President Trump is guilty of quid pro quo. He's guilty of bribing Ukrainian officials, the Ukrainian president. None of them said that. So what they ended up doing ultimately in the end is pushing obstruction of Congress and abuse of power, which were bogus charges. That's why everything was dismissed and things go back to normal. But the person who is actually guilty of quid pro quo is Joe Biden. Remember when he was at the meeting of the Council of Foreign Relations, just joking about pressuring the government?
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
So remember that? That is an obvious pay to play. The prosecutor that Joe Biden wanted fired in Ukraine, he was investigating Burisma Holdings, the company that his not qualified at all son, Hunter, sat on their board of directors. This was the company being investigated. This is the person that Joe Biden wanted fired. So now there's new audio that's been leaked out that show actual conversations between Vice President Joe Biden and then President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, talking about this. And here's part of the clip.
Assuming that there is a new government and a new prosecutor general, I am prepared to do a public signing of the commitment for the $1 billion.
So look at that. Biden is saying directly, get rid of this prosecutor, the one that's investigating my son, and you'll get the money. And in these conversations, Ukraine president actually says there's nothing wrong with this prosecutor, but I'll do what you say.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign.
This is just unreal. What the Democrats accused President Trump of doing, then Vice President Joe Biden actually did it. He actually did it. He actually pressured their government by withholding $1 billion in aid until they complied. Once they complied, he sent the money.
Congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general's in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee.
So what's going to happen? If you scan the media, you're already seeing the narratives that are emerging. You're seeing one of two things, and this is from people like media like the Washington Post, which we'll get into. They're either doing one of two things. They're saying, Joe Biden, this is old news. He joked about it. Well, just because he joked about it doesn't mean it's not a crime. And now we see the actual conversations, which is a lot different than Biden joking about it at some meeting with intellectuals. These are actual conversations between the president of Ukraine and Joe Biden saying exactly what the quid pro quo is. He's saying exactly what it is. So they're either trying to downplay it, or they're saying that the Ukrainian official who leaked this information, Andrei Derkach, that he's some Russian asset, that this is all just a Russian disinformation campaign going back to Russia, and they're trying to downplay it again, dismiss it as just a distraction from the election, when this is serious business. But that's the angle we're taking. And here's a report from the Washington Post. But Derkach, an independent member of Ukraine's parliament who previously aligned with pro-Russian faction and has past links to Russian intelligence, used the new clips to make an array of accusations not proved by the tapes. At no point in the clips released Tuesday does Biden mention Burisma or his son. Shokin's firing was not a unilateral action directed by Biden, but was prompted by a push for anti-corruption measures developed at the State Department and coordinated with the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. Well, how nice is that? Of course, Biden is not going to mention Burisma Holdings and his son directly in the conversation. Give me a break. But this shows just how intellectually and journalistically dishonest and not curious the media are. If it doesn't fit their narrative, they're not going to investigate it. They're supposed to be professionals. They're supposed to be a profession of journalism, and they follow this wherever it is, regardless of what party, regardless of ideology. They're supposed to follow the leads and investigate, but they are not curious. They don't investigate at all if it doesn't fit their narrative. So what's going to happen? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you think that these audio tapes are a big deal, or if it is just Joe Biden already talked about it. It's old news. Let me know what you think. So next we're going to talk about elections and election integrity, because in America, the freest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, we have something that just puts us in awe from some of these third world countries. And that is a country so powerful can relinquish that power over an election. As powerful as people get, either they retire, they hit term limits, they're voted out, they relinquish that power, and someone else takes the mantle. That is why our elections are so sacred. That is why we have to keep them safe and secure and make sure that fraud is non-existent or kept to a minimum. Yet the Democrats always want to blast the Republicans. Oh, fraud's not a big deal. We shouldn't have voter ID because that is just oppressive. That is racist. Well, guess what? Just this week, 2 examples popped up in the media of fraud in elections and why it is so important to keep our elections as secure and proper as possible. And here's a report from the Washington Times. A Philadelphia elections judge and Democratic Party official pleaded guilty Thursday to stuffing ballot boxes in favor of Democrat candidates in elections in 2014, 2015, and 2016 while collecting thousands of dollars in cash to make the changes. Prosecutors hinted at even a broader conspiracy by an unnamed political consultant who charged his clients consulting fees and then used some of the money to pay off multiple election board officials. So you see, this is a mess. This case is a mess out there, and it's not voter ID, but it goes to the point that this stuff should be investigated, and Democrats and the left always try and downplay it and make it look like conservatives are some kind of just freaked out about voter fraud when it really doesn't exist. This case is a mess. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia won Thursday's guilty plea from Dominic J. DeMuro, who serves as a judge of elections responsible for overseeing a polling place during voting. DeMuro was also a Democratic Party ward chairman. He charged up to $5,000 an election to ring up votes for the political consultant's clients. Prosecutors said DeMuro stuffed the ballot box in elections for judicial candidates as well as those running for federal, state, and local offices. All right, so folks, as far as battling fraud, many times it comes down to political will. And what we're seeing is the Trump administration has that will, and the Obama administration certainly did not have it. Election integrity watchdog Public Interest Legal Foundation praised the Trump administration for pursuing the case. The Trump administration's prosecution of election fraud stands in stark contrast to the total failure of the Obama Justice Department to enforce these laws, said J. Christian Adams, head of the PILF. All right. And then, so that's one example. Then there's this case of ballots in South Carolina, ending up in Baltimore, Maryland. Absentee ballots from South Carolina were found in Maryland this week, and South Carolina officials are blaming a Minnesota printing company used by several heavily populated counties. The same vendor is being blamed by Maryland officials for delays in delivering absentee ballots to the state for its June 2nd primaries. Ballots from Charleston County somehow were delivered to officials in Baltimore, the Post and Courier reported this week. A state election board official said it's just one of several problems with Sea Change Print Innovations of Minnesota, which prints and mails absentee ballots for 13 South Carolina counties. So see how easy it is for fraud to come up? This company mails South Carolina ballots to Baltimore. What if that were intentional? What if you send a batch out of state, get them filled in, send them back? It's people who shouldn't be voting. They end up voting, which is all the more reason that we need to have in-person voting. Unless there is an extreme circumstance where you can't make it to the polls, we need to have people voting in person with a voter ID. Prove who you are, then you can vote. It's only the most important activity in the United States of America. It needs to be as secure as possible, regardless of what the left says. So next, I want to talk about Kamala Harris. But first, if you love this show, please subscribe and please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We're making our push for 100,000 subscribers, and we can do it with your help getting the word out there and hitting that subscribe button. All right, so next we're going to talk about Kamala Harris because her presidential campaign crashed and burned. It failed, but did she ride off into the sunset? Nope, she's back. And she's pushing a classic left-wing attack. And that is to limit, regulate, monitor, and judge free speech. What is acceptable and what is not. And her target right now is coronavirus. And again, if she has her way, if the left have their way, they are going to chip away at free speech and make it more and more difficult to say what we want. And here's the story. Senator Kamala Harris introduced a resolution condemning anti-Asian sentiment as related to COVID-19, including the use of the phrase Wuhan virus. The former presidential candidate introduced the bill on behalf of a number of Democrats to condemn all manifestations of expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, anti-Asian sentiment, scapegoating, and ethnic and religious intolerance, and to expeditiously investigate and document all credible reports of hate crimes, incidents, and threats against Asian American and Pacific Islander communities in the United States. I know, right? You think I'm kidding. You think that I've started Friday's Relaxed Brain already, but she is serious, and here's more. The resolution takes particular aim at phrases such as Wuhan virus, Chinese virus, and Kung flu for perpetuating anti-Asia stigma. It calls on the U.S. to recommit to building an inclusive society by prioritizing language access and inclusivity in communication practices. What does that even mean? Prioritizing language access? I don't know what that means, but I tell you what I think it means. I think it's coming after our free speech. I think that's what the Democrats want to do. I think that's what the left wants to do. And now they're putting it in a resolution. I mean, what about Spanish flu? What about Ebola? What about West Nile? What about Lyme disease? All named after the location or their origin. But we say Chinese flu, we say Wuhan virus. Nope. Now that's bad. The left deems it bad, even though it's the left, like CNN, with their reporting, that first used it. They used it before any of us were talking about it. But then they deem it's bad, and now, boom, out the door. We cannot let them become the judges of free speech. All right, so now we are going to get into our actual Relaxed Brain segment. But first, folks, you have to tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow is our Saturday live stream, and we've got special guest Dinesh D'Souza. He is an awesome conservative commentator, author, filmmaker. We're going to be talking about politics, coronavirus, the shutdowns, free speech, the Democrats, the left, you name it. We're also going to be going over his book, The United States of Socialism, and taking your questions. So please go to my Facebook page or our community tab, leave your questions in advance, and if you want, if you can, put your questions in video, send them to me. They can make it onto the show. Just use the Ask BE link in the description. Gives complete details on how to send in a video question. All right, so now we're going to get there. It's Friday. We're going to talk about, do you have a relaxed brain?
I got what you call, like, I don't know, a relaxed brain.
All right, so first we're going to talk about reopening rules because the country is reopening, which means that people are taking so many safeguards. And one county in particular held a press conference for opening a tennis facility. And it turns out that you can kick people's balls, but you just can't touch them.
Every player, unless they're from the same household, has to bring their own tennis balls so that you don't touch other people's tennis balls with your hands. You can kick their balls, but you can't touch them.
Yep, you can't touch them, but you can kick them. And here's more.
Of course, if you're playing with someone in your household, you can touch those tennis balls. To avoid confusion between whose balls are whose, you can use a marker, like a Sharpie, to mark out, to put an X or put someone's initials on them.
All right, that just cracks me up. And now I want to give you a couple of headlines from the Babylon Bee, because with all these blue state lockdowns and COVIDiots running amok, there is just a plethora of headlines out there that are just so funny. I want to put a couple up on the screen. Here's the first one from Babylon Bee. I can't believe Christians think it's safe to go back to church, says a woman in line at Walmart. I just love that one because this whole thing is absolutely nuts. Walmart has been open. Home Depot has been open. Grocery stores have been open. People separate. They social distance to checkout. Some of them don't even do it, but these are all open. But churches, they can't open. Even they would obviously put in social distancing practices, have people spread out. That's what they're doing at my church. Yet, on some of these states, you can go to these stores, but you can't go to church. So next, there's Stacey Abrams in Georgia, who has this headline. Stacey Abrams says she will step down as governor if asked to run for VP. I just love that one because this is Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor in Georgia, says she won the election even though she lost by over 50,000 votes. But I guess Biden is glad to hear that if she's picked as VP, she'll step down as governor, the office she actually lost. So anyway, folks, that's our show for today. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.